The tension in Genoa City felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Inside the quiet corridors of the hospital, Lily Winters stood by the window, watching the gray sky above Wisconsin. The world outside looked calm, peaceful even, but inside her mind everything felt tangled. The past few weeks had turned her life upside down. Lies, schemes, kidnapping, and Victor Newman's shadow hanging over everything. Cane Ashby walked slowly down the hallway toward her. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind at least a dozen times, but none of the imaginary conversations prepared him for the reality of seeing Lily again. She looked tired but strong, the same woman he had loved for years. Lily, Cane said softly. She turned around. For a moment neither of them spoke. The silence held years of history between them, love, betrayal, forgiveness, and regret. I didn't know if you'd come, Lily finally said. I wasn't sure I should, Cane admitted, but we needed to talk. Lily nodded. She had been expecting this conversation ever since everything fell apart. Victor Newman's dangerous scheme had nearly destroyed multiple lives. Lily had known pieces of it, enough to keep quiet but not enough to control the chaos that followed. Cane had paid the price for that silence. Look, Lily said carefully, I know things are complicated right now. That's one way to put it, Cane replied with a tired smile. He leaned against the wall across from her. I just want to understand something, he continued. Did you know what Victor was planning with Jack? Lily hesitated. Yes and no, she admitted. Cane raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a lawyer's answer. I knew Victor was up to something, Lily said, but I didn't know how far he would go. I didn't know it would turn into this. Her voice cracked slightly. Cane studied her face carefully. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed. I believe you. Lily blinked in surprise. You do? Yeah, Cane said quietly, because if you had known everything, you wouldn't have let it happen. Relief flickered across Lily's face. But the deeper question remained. What happened now? We can't pretend nothing changed, Lily said. I know, but we also can't keep living in the past. Cane nodded slowly. You're right. They both looked down the hallway where the twins were laughing with a nurse. They're children. The reason they had tried so many times to make things work. So what do we do, Lily asked. Cane thought for a moment. I think we figure out how to move forward, together or apart. And if the answer is together. Cane looked directly into her eyes. Then we start over. The words hung in the air. A fresh beginning. Something both of them had wanted for a long time. But nothing in Genoa City was ever that simple. Across town, chaos was brewing. Patty Williams sat alone in a dimly lit room, rocking slightly back and forth in a chair. Her eyes were wide, unfocused. Jack Abbott sat tied to a chair across the room, watching her carefully. He had learned one thing very quickly. Patty Williams was unpredictable, and that made her extremely dangerous. You know what the problem is, Jack, Patty suddenly said. Jack remained calm. I'm guessing you're about to tell me. Patty smiled strangely. People lie. That happens. They pretend to care, Patty continued, ignoring his response, but they don't, not really. Jack shifted slightly in his chair. His hands were still bound behind him. Patty, he said carefully, whatever you think happened, we can talk about it. She stood up suddenly. No, her voice echoed through the room. You always say that, let's talk, let be reasonable. She stepped closer. But nobody ever listens to me. Jack studied her carefully. Years ago, he had known Patty when she was fragile but harmless. Now she was something else entirely. Unstable. Dangerous. I'm listening right now, Jack said calmly. Patty stopped walking. For a moment, she looked almost confused. Then she laughed. You're funny, Jack. Meanwhile, miles away, Billy Abbott was driving as fast as possible. Diane Jenkins Abbott sat beside him, gripping the dashboard. Kyle Abbott followed in another car behind them. They had finally tracked Jack's location. And none of them knew exactly what they were about to walk into. Billy, Diane said nervously, slow down. No, Billy replied. We don't even know what Patty's capable of right now. Billy's jaw tightened. She kidnapped my brother. That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? Diane took a breath. I mean Patty is unpredictable if we rush in. Billy cut her off. I'm not waiting. Behind them, Kyle's car kept pace. He felt the same urgency. Jack Abbott was family, and they were going to get him back, no matter what it took. Back in Genoa City, another storm was brewing. Inside the Newman ranch, Nikki Newman stood in front of Victor with fire in her eyes. I cannot believe you did this. Victor looked perfectly calm. I did what needed to be done. You kidnapped Jack Abbott. Victor leaned back in his chair. That's an exaggeration. Nikki stared at him in disbelief. An exaggeration. Victor folded his hands. Jack has been interfering with my business for years. That does not justify kidnapping him. Victor's voice hardened. You don't understand the situation. No, Nikki said firmly, I understand it perfectly. She walked closer. You crossed a line. Victor's expression darkened. For the sake of our family, I will do whatever is necessary. Nikki shook her head slowly. This isn't about family anymore. Victor said nothing. And if something happens to Jack, Nikki continued. Her voice trembled. This marriage may not survive it. For the first time, Victor looked slightly unsettled. Across the country, two brothers were preparing for a dangerous mission. Nick Newman and Adam Newman sat inside a private jet heading toward Las Vegas. The hum of the engines filled the cabin. Adam stared out the window. Vegas, a place tied to some of his darkest memories. Nick noticed his expression. Second thoughts. Adam smirked. You wish. Then what's going on in that head of yours? Adam leaned back in his seat. Matt Clark. Nick nodded. Oh yeah. Adam sighed. My past in Vegas, it's not exactly clean. You were Spider, Nick said. Adam rolled his eyes. Please don't call me that. Nick chuckled. Too late. Adam shook his head. Look, if Matt Clark is still connected to the same people I used to run with, this could get messy. Nick looked at him seriously. We'll handle it. Adam nodded slowly. Oh yeah, but deep down he knew something. The past always had a way of catching up. Meanwhile, another life was about to change forever. Inside the courthouse, Mariah Copeland sat at the defense table. Her hands trembled slightly. Across the room, reporters whispered. The kidnapping of Dominic Winters had shocked Genoa City. Now everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Christine Blair Romalotti walked into the courtroom with quiet confidence. She believed justice had to be served. Mariah looked up. Her eyes filled with fear. Because today could decide the rest of her life. The judge entered the courtroom. Court is now in session. Mariah swallowed hard. Her future was about to be decided. And nothing would ever be the same again. The old lakeside cabin stood silent under a darkening sky. Inside, Patty Williams paced back and forth like a storm trapped in human form. Jack Abbott sat tied to the chair, watching every movement carefully. His calm expression was deliberate. Panic would only make things worse. Patty stopped suddenly and stared at him. You think they're coming for you, don't you? Jack didn't answer immediately. I think people care about me, he said finally. Patty tilted her head, studying him. That must be nice. Outside, the distant sound of tires crunching on gravel echoed through the quiet woods. Billy Abbott slammed the car door and hurried toward the cabin. Diane followed close behind while Kyle approached from the opposite side. Billy whispered, everyone ready. Kyle nodded. Diane looked uneasy. Remember, Patty is unstable. Billy gave her a look. Trust me, I noticed. They moved toward the door. Inside, Patty froze. Her eyes widened. They're here, she whispered. Jack's heart skipped a beat. Patty. But she was already moving, grabbing a kitchen knife from the counter. They want to take you away from me. Jack tried to keep his voice steady. No one is taking anything from you, let's just talk. The door burst open. Billy rushed in first. Jack. Patty screamed and raised the knife. Stay back. Billy froze. Kyle entered behind him, carefully scanning the room. Diane stepped forward slowly. Patty, listen to me. Patty's eyes locked onto Diane instantly. For a moment, her expression twisted into something dark and bitter. You? Diane swallowed. Yes, it's me. You always ruin everything, Patty muttered. Jack took the opportunity to speak calmly. Patty, nobody wants to hurt you. Billy carefully moved closer to Jack's chair. Just put the knife down. Patty's breathing became erratic. For a second, it seemed like the situation might explode. Then suddenly Patty dropped the knife. It clattered loudly on the floor. I'm tired, she whispered. Billy immediately untied Jack's hands. You okay? Jack stood slowly. I've had better weekends. Kyle let out a breath of relief. But Diane remained frozen. Seeing Patty again had clearly shaken her. Police sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Patty looked around the room like someone waking from a nightmare. They're coming for me, she said quietly. No one argued. Within minutes, the police arrived and took Patty into custody. As she was led outside, she turned back toward Jack. Some stories never end, Jack Abbott. Then she disappeared into the flashing lights. Back in Genoa City, Victor Newman sat in his office when Nikki walked in again. Her expression was cold. The Abbotts found Jack. Victor didn't react. Good. Nikki crossed her arms. Good. Victor leaned back calmly. He's alive, that's what matters. Nikki shook her head. You orchestrated the entire mess. Victor's voice remained steady. I handled a problem. You created one. The room filled with tension. Nikki's eyes softened slightly, but her voice stayed firm. I have defended you for decades, Victor, but this was too far. Victor stared at her. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to decide what matters more. And what is that? Power or your family? For once, Victor had no immediate response. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, neon lights flashed across the night sky. Nick and Adam stepped out of the jet and into the dry desert air. Adam glanced around. Still smells like bad decisions. Nick smirked. You would know. They climbed into a waiting car. Their target was Matt Clark, a man whose criminal network had caused months of destruction. Adam drove through the glowing streets of Vegas with practiced ease. You remember where to find him? Nick asked. Adam nodded. Unfortunately, they stopped outside a worn nightclub on the edge of the strip. Nick frowned. This place looks like trouble. Adam replied calmly. That's because it is. Inside, music pounded through the crowded room. Adam scanned the bar carefully. Then he spotted him. Matt Clark. Matt looked up and immediately recognized Adams. Well, Matt said with a grin, if it is Spider. Nick muttered under his breath. Please stop calling him that. Adam stepped closer. We're ending this tonight. Matt laughed. You think you can just walk in here and threaten me? Adam leaned across the table. I'm not threatening you. Matt raised an eyebrow. I'm promising you. Nick stepped forward. Your games are over. Matt studied both of them. For the first time, his smile faded slightly. Because he realized something. The Newman brothers weren't bluffing. Back in Genoa City, the courthouse was packed. Mariah Copeland sat silently while the judge reviewed the case. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she barely heard it. All she could think about was Dominic. The child she had kidnapped. The child she loved. Christine Blair Romalotti stood confidently across the room. To her, the situation was clear. A crime had been committed. Consequences had to follow. The judge looked up. Mariah Copeland, you have been charged with kidnapping Dominic Winters. Mariah's heart pounded. The courtroom was completely silent. However, the judge continued, the court also recognizes significant psychological distress at the time of the incident. Mariah's breath caught. The judge continued speaking carefully. Therefore, this court orders mandatory treatment in a psychiatric facility rather than prison. Gasps spread across the courtroom. Mariah began to cry. Not from fear, from relief. Her life was not over. But everything had changed. Later that night, Genoa City slowly returned to its uneasy normal. Jack Abbott stood in the Abbott mansion living room with Billy, Diane, and Kyle. The tension had finally faded. Billy poured a drink. To surviving Patty Williams. Jack chuckled tiredly. I'll drink to that. Kyle looked at his father. You scared us. Jack nodded. I scared myself. Diane stepped closer to him. Are you really okay? Jack smiled gently. I will be. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Across town, Victor Newman stared out the window of the ranch. Nikki stood behind him silently. Neither of them spoke. Some battles were over. Others were just beginning. And in Genoa City, peace never lasted very long.